Hello. I see some people are jumping on. I just want to confirm everyone can hear me. So if you can hear me, let me know in the chat box that you can. Hi, Brittany. Hi, Marguerite. Awesome. So I can see that people can hear me. Hello. Thank you guys so much for joining me this afternoon or morning, depending on what time zone that you're in. But I'm just gonna give a few minutes and let a few other people jump on. I know we have almost 500 signups for this webinar, so I'm so excited. Awesome. So there is a chat box feature in the webinar. So please, if you have any questions throughout the entire webinar, drop them in the chat box. I will leave time at the end of the webinar for a good section for Q&A. So I definitely want to make sure I get all of your questions answered throughout the entire time today. So please leave that in the chat. Awesome. Awesome. So most of you know me, but if you do not, my name is Samantha and I'm the Artistic Director with AQUA. I'm so excited to be here this morning. I am very excited for a lot of stylists getting so much information about Machine Weft. So we wanted to do this webinar because we are getting so many questions from so many stylists asking, how do I use Machine Weft? What is the difference between Machine Weft and Hand Tied Weft, right? And then how do I transition my guests over from Machine Weft to Hand Tied Weft and everything in between? So we wanted to make sure that we give you all of that information, make sure you feel confident and comfortable to offer Machine Weft to your guests. So here we are. Before I get started, I know my voice is a little raspy. I apologize. I live in Ohio. The allergies are crazy here right now. So I have a voice today, which is more and a huge improvement than I've had the past few days. So I know I'm a little bit deeper and raspy than I normally am, but I just wanted to let you know that is why. So let's go ahead. I think we're good to go ahead and get started. There is like I said, a Q&A box. Let me go ahead and pull that up here. Awesome. So there is a Q&A box. And like I said, there is a chat box technically in this webinar. We prefer if you use the questions and answer box. So they're kind of both at the bottom of your screen. The questions and answer box will be able to filter through the questions a little bit better. But in the chat box, I definitely would love to hear from you. So in the chat box, let me know where you're tuning in from. What state, what city you're in, what you're most excited to learn today about in the Machine Weft webinar. So let me hear that in the chat box and in the Q&A box. If you have any questions throughout the entire time, I would love to answer those for you. Oh, awesome. I see some California, North Carolina, Indiana, Denver, Texas, Fort Lauderdale, Nebraska, a little bit of everywhere. Oh, Pittsburgh. I'm from Pittsburgh, Reverend Pittsburgh here. I love that. Oh, we are from all over. Awesome. So a question I did get already is, are we getting a copy of this webinar? Yes. So it is being recorded. You will get a copy sent to you after the webinar. So you will get a recording that you can continuously play back. So if for some reason you do need to sneak out early, or if you're watching this as the replay, you definitely are going to get a replay of the class today. So, and you also will get a certification. So I know this is a certification webinar, so you're going to get a certificate and you're going to get the recording for the webinar today. So, oh, Minnesota, allergies. Stacy, yes. Allergies are it's so rough here right now. There's little white floaties all throughout the entire town. So yes, you feel me. You feel me if you live in an area where the pollen and it's just so rough. But I can't complain because it's warm. It's 80 degrees out today. So I'll take it. I'll deal with it. I'd rather have that than the snow that we get here in Ohio. Awesome. Okay, so in today's webinar, like I mentioned, we're going to learn the specifics of the hand tied weft. So first I'm going to dive into the breakdown, the nitty gritty of the hand tied weft, the specifics of it, how much does it weigh, what is the width, how many come in a pack, what lengths they come in, all of that. So I'm going to answer all of those questions first, and then we'll get into the who, the what, the how, the why of the machine weft. Okay, who should I recommend machine wefts to? Why would I recommend machine weft to my guest over maybe hand tied weft or any other extension system? Okay. How do I apply the machine weft? Okay. Is it deconstructible? Do I put the entire thing in? Do I fold? Do I cut it? Right. So How do I put it in? We're going to cover that. And then, like I mentioned in the beginning, we're covering the what behind it. So I will make sure at the end of this webinar, you know the answers to all of those questions. And then we're going to do an actual demo of the machine weft. So I'm going to give you a little sneak peek and a little extra bonus content on how to tack down the corners of your wefts. So at the very end of the webinar, we're going to go over how to measure out the weft to match perfectly in your guest's head, how to cut and deconstruct if necessary. And then, like I mentioned, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek on how to tack down the corners of the wefts. Who here struggles with that? Yes, I see somebody says, I struggle with securing my corners. Absolutely. So we will go into detail about how to secure the corners of your weft. And this will apply to both hand-tied weft and machine weft. So we're definitely going to touch upon that at the very end, and I'm going to give you a little extra bonus content on how to really tie those corners down, because I see they can be frustrating, they can be so pesky, right? How do I tack those down? So I promise you we will do that at the very end of the class. Awesome. So let's talk about the specifics of the machine weft. So I have one here, okay? I'm gonna unfold. So AQUA Machine Weft comes in 30-inch wide piece. Okay, so you can see right here, I just pulled this out of the pack. This is one machine weft. Okay, the machine weft does come in two different lengths. So the machine weft comes in 18-inch and 22 inches. So those are the two lengths that we carry at AQUA. And by length, I mean top to bottom. Okay, so 18 and 22-inch length. And the width of the weft is always 30 inches wide. So I know, see some of you are saying, wow, yes. It is a lot of hair per pack. So they're 30-inch wide piece. And we're going to talk about how I will cut this to match my guest's width that I need to apply. But they're always in one 30-inch wide piece. Much different than the hand-tied weft, right? Our hand-tied weft, you get 3 or 4 wefts per pack, depending on which length that you're working with. And each weft is much, much shorter than our 30-inch wide piece. So in a moment, we're going to talk about how to cut this and deconstruct if necessary, but you notice it is a lot of hair. It's so much more hair. So when we're talking about weight, okay, let's talk about weight of the weft. So our 18-inch packs of machine weft, you get 130 grams of hair total, okay? 130 grams of hair. So if you can see here, I'm going to kind of roll it back up. There's 130 grams of hair in our 18-inch machine weft, okay? Our 22-inch machine weft is 160 grams of hair, okay? So let's compare that back to our hand-tied weft weight, okay? Because most of us here are used to using our traditional hand-tied weft that we've always, have carried at AQUA for many years. So 130 grams in our 18-inch and 160 grams in our 22 inches in comparison to hand-tied weft. So our 18-inch hand-tied weft packs are 60 grams of hair. So the hand-tied weft, one pack that you purchase from AQUA, 18-inch, you have 4 individual hand-tied weft in there, is 60 grams of hair, okay? So you would need like 2.5 hand-tied weft packs to equal the weight of one machine weft pack, okay? So 2.5 packs of hand-tied weft will equal 1 pack of machine weft, 18-inch, okay? So let's talk 22 inches. 1 pack of 22-inch hand-tied weft is roughly 63 grams of hair, okay? 63 grams of hair. So with machine weft, 1 pack of 22-inch machine weft is 160 grams of hair, 160, not 63. So with that being said, you're needing roughly 3 packs of hand-tied weft to equal 1 pack of machine weft. Okay, so those of you that are currently using hand-tied weft on your guest, and you're wondering how much hair do I need if I'm using machine weft, on average, 99% of the time, 1 pack of machine weft is plenty for that guest, weight-wise, okay? We'll get into why you may need an additional pack here or there. However, 99% of the time, if we're just looking at weight for weight, okay, 1 pack of machine weft is plenty for a full head of extension on your guest. okay? So in addition, with the machine weft, it does come in a variety of colors, okay? You have lots of balayage tones, duotones, your natural tones, all of our new colors that we launched a few months back. Our cool collection, our oceans collection does come in all of the machine weft, okay? So there's a huge variety of colors. And I'll answer it now. I see a question, is the machine weft still human hair? Absolutely. It's the exact same hair that we process and apply on all of our systems, okay? With AQUA, what I absolutely love is the hair is exactly the same on all 6 of our extension systems. So no matter what extension system we're working with, the hair is exactly the same. So that meaning it is 100% human hair. It is 100% REMI hair, okay? It does have that 2-step technology process that it goes through before you receive that hair. So it's the exact same high quality hair that you're always used to using. We just now have it on a machine weft, okay? So with the machine weft, an amazing aspect of the machine weft is that we can cut the machine weft unlike the hand tied weft, okay? So remember, with the hand tied weft, we never cut the hand tied weft. I actually have one here, right? If you look at the density difference of a hand tied weft and a machine weft, okay, you can truly see how much more density is on a machine weft and how dainty and flat laying the hand tied weft is. However, remember, the hand tied weft we never cut. Okay, the hand tied weft we fold into place, we fold to achieve the look that we're desiring and the width that we need. We never cut the hand tied weft because it will completely unravel and fall apart. Okay, this is truly handmade, hence why it is called a hand tied weft. Okay, with the machine weft, totally different. We absolutely can cut the machine weft to fit the width that we're looking for. We would never fold the machine weft in place because it is a lot more dense and thick at the top of the weft, okay? It's a machine weft because it was made with a machine. So it's not quite as dainty and fine as the hand tied weft. The hand tied weft is actually only made up of 3 threads, creating the weft with hair knotted to it. Okay, so 3 threads, that's all that makes up that hand tied weft, versus the machine weft is actually 3 individual layers that make up this machine weft. So I'm going to show you in a moment how I would deconstruct it, why I may deconstruct it, but it is made up of 3 separate individual layers that make up this one full machine weft. So questions, is it deconstructible? It absolutely is. You can deconstruct down to 2 layers or 3 layers, depending on your guest's overall density, and we're gonna talk about that soon. Awesome, I see the questions rolling in. I love it. Keep them coming. I absolutely will get to all your questions at the end of the webinar. So if you're just tuning in, there is a Q&A box in the webinar. So please ask your questions in the Q&A box. I absolutely will get to them at the end of the webinar. And if you haven't yet, leave me a comment in the chat box with where you're calling in from and what you're looking forward to in the class today. So I'm seeing a lot of questions too. You absolutely are going to get a recording of this. So you will get a recording after it is over. So don't worry if you missed the beginning, you'll be sent a recording of the webinar. So who would benefit from a machine weft? Okay, who would wear a machine weft? So with that being said, the machine weft, as you notice, is so much more density than a hand tied weft. And the weft itself is absolutely much thicker and dense. So any guest who has medium to dense hair, medium to thick hair, can absolutely wear a machine weft, okay? Your very, very fine haired clients, while yes, the machine weft can be completely deconstructed, and you'll see that in a moment, down to 3 separate layers, it can still be heavy on the guest's hair because it has more fabric and thread, like more thread at the top, right? There's much more thread attached and a bigger band at the top of the machine weft. So if your guest is very fragile and fine, we would still want to steer that guest towards hand-tied weft. However, if they have medium density, strong hair, up to very thick, dense hair, those are going to be your guests that absolutely will wear machine weft. Your guests that are wearing maybe 3 packs of hand-tied weft, you're trying to pack in as much hair as you can, it's still not enough hair, Those are going to be your ideal clients for Machine Weft, okay? Another ideal client would be a guest who's very, very hard on their wefts. Who has them? Show me hands. Who has a guest who is so rough on their hand tied weft, you want to take the hand tied weft away from them, right? They're either not brushing it properly and they are pulling at the weft. They just are overall very rough on their hand tied weft. And you're noticing that they're almost destroying their hand tied weft. Anyone ready to revoke their privileges of hand tied weft is what I say, right? Their privileges are getting taken away because no matter what they do, you can't figure out what they're doing at home. They are just not maintaining their hand tied weft properly because the hand tied weft, again, as we mentioned, is handmade. It's very fragile. So what the hand tied weft is those 3 threads all knotted to the thread. And once that weft gets roughed up, or maybe they're leaving it damp or wet and not blow drying, so it's swelling and contracting, all of that weft will eventually, the hairs will get pulled up above the weft gets completely destroyed, okay? With that being said, that does not happen on the machine weft. So the machine weft is much, much more durable than a hand-tied weft, okay? You're not going to have those challenges of your guest roughing up their weft and pulling up on the hair on the weft, okay? So the machine weft is so much more durable. So your guests who are really hard, really rough on their hair, I always say they're rough sleepers, they're really rough brushers. They just have so much going on that their hair just takes really the brunt of all of it. Absolutely, the machine weft is going to be most ideal for those guests, okay? Another guest that machine weft might be ideal for is a guest who is more on a budget, okay? The machine weft is absolutely more cost effective than the hand tied weft. And I'd never, ever use the word cheaper, okay? We don't say the word cheaper, we use the word more cost effective because it is, right? Extensions are an investment. No matter what extension you're working with, extensions are an investment. So we don't want to say something's cheaper or more expensive. We want to say the machine weft is more cost effective over the hand tied weft, okay? So 1 pack of machine weft is less in price than you will need for 2 to 3 packs of hand tied weft, okay? So it absolutely is more cost effective for your guests overall, but that should not be the #1 reason why we choose machine weft, okay? Again, it does come down to their lifestyle. How rough are they on their hair? Okay. Another huge one I always want to take into consideration is how does my guest wear her hair? Okay, let's scroll down on these questions. How does my guest wear her hair? Does she like to wear a really high ponytail? Okay, does your guest like to wear those really high ponies? If she does, hand tied weft is absolutely still going to lay the most flat to the scalp. Okay, absolutely, no matter what, even if you're layering 3, 4 wefts right on top of each other of hand tied weft, it still is going to lay the most flat to their scalp versus machine weft. Machine weft, again, is thicker. And if you deconstruct, absolutely, you'll get it to lay a little bit more flat. But if you truly need that density, you really can't deconstruct it down and with less layers because you won't have as much density on the guest's hair. So hand tied weft is going to lay flat for your guests that pull their hair up in a high ponytail. I see somebody asked here, what about putting a helmet on and off every day? Great question, right? I wear a hat. Some of you know, probably have never seen me without a hat. Maybe on my Instagram story this past week, I did wear a high ponytail. Thanks to inspo from our educator, Vanessa. She wore a cute bubble pony, so I rocked it, and people did not recognize me. They're like, who are you? Where's your hat, right? So someone who wears a helmet on and off every single day, or maybe a hat that the weft has to kind of sit right where that hat lays, I can totally see where a hand tied weft can get roughed up, right? Helmet on and off every day. Maybe they're an equestrian, maybe they ride motorcycles, right? So I do truly think that if that is a challenge for your guest, absolutely try machine weft. That would be a better option in the instance where it's not going to get destroyed or get roughed up like a hand tied weft will. Great question. So with the machine weft, like I mentioned, the end all be all should absolutely not be the cost effectiveness. However, that might be a challenge for your guest, right? When I do my consultations, the first question I always ask the guest is, what is your budget, right? If you've taken classes with me, that is very high in my consultation list. What's your budget? right? How much are you looking to spend on extensions? And if Machine Weft fits within their budget and their lifestyle and their hair density, right? Absolutely offer Machine Wefts to that guest, okay? So a huge benefit also to Machine Weft is that it is customizable, okay? Just like the Hand Tied Weft. So we know with the Hand Tied Weft, you can layer up to 4 individual wefts or 4 layers in each row. And with that, you can absolutely customize the overall color that you're looking for the guest's hair, right? I could take up to 4 different colors and layer them right on top of each other using a hand-tied weft. So it's very customizable. With the Machine Weft, you absolutely can do that as well. So like I said, we're going to deconstruct the Machine Weft. I'm going to do that in a moment. And with that, you can deconstruct each layer off, swap different colors in there to then create custom color dimension. So you don't have to stack this entire weft in one row. You absolutely can. I have plenty of guests who I do not deconstruct. This is the perfect density for their hair. I don't need any other color options. I can just measure and cut this weft exactly where I need, and I'm applying it full, okay? So I don't want you to think you have to deconstruct the weft, okay? I hear from a lot of stylists that the first thing they do when they get their weft is they start deconstructing it. Why, right? If this is a great density for your guest's hair, they truly need the full density of this weft, their hair can sustain the weight of the weft, there's no need to deconstruct individual layers off. Apply it as one full Machine Weft, and that's perfect, okay? However, if you truly want to have customization, I said that totally backwards, color customization on your guest's hair, you can deconstruct 2 different colors of Machine Weft, okay? Deconstruct the top layer off, swap them so you now have 2 different colors. So I have one of our duotone colors here, right? And then I have a solid. So I can deconstruct the top layer off of, I think this is color number 4. I could deconstruct the top layer off and deconstruct the top layer off of this duotone, swap them. So I now have really pretty like density coming through of both colors. Okay, so that's absolutely an option. And then the last question I get is, can I use both Machine Weft and Hand Tied Weft? Absolutely, why not, right? If your guest doesn't have the challenge of them destroying their Hand Tied Weft, right? And they've never had an issue with it, or you truly don't think that they will, you can absolutely apply, let's say 2 layers of Machine Weft, okay? 2 layers of Machine Weft and 1 layer of Hand Tied Weft right on top. You absolutely can use both just for color customization, right? Or you can apply 1 full row of Machine Weft and then another row of Hand Tied Weft. Now, why would I maybe want to do some Machine Weft, like 1 full row, and then another full row of Hand Tied Weft, right? But in the chat box, why do you think I'd want to do that? 2 totally separate systems, 1 in each row, okay? So let's say I do need more density, right? The guest is much more dense in their midsection, right? Yes, Alex said hair density, absolutely. So if my guest is much more dense in their, like, you know, we'll say the occipital bone nape area and right in their midsection, I can apply the Machine Weft for density. But if my guest is much more fine in their crown and around their temple area, as you move to the top of their head, I can apply Hand Tied Weft for density, right? Because my guest is much less dense in their crown, or vice versa. Some of your guests are way less dense in the bottom and more dense in the top. So you could do 1 row of each. So they absolutely can be both utilized in the same head for many different purposes. You have to determine as the professional what fits that guest best, okay? Their density of hair, their lifestyle, their overall goals that they're trying to achieve with extensions. Maybe, like I said, they truly like to wear their hair up in a high ponytail, so hand-tied weft might be better for them. If they're not looking to wear those really high tight ponytails, Machine Weft will be great. So you have to determine what is best for your guest overall, and that's how you decide which weft fits their needs, okay? So how do I transition my guests from hand-tied weft over to Machine Weft? Okay, so a few different options. I would recommend, let's say their hand tied weft is still in great shape, right? They are not really needing new hair per se. You can always just swap out one row, right? Swap out one row. Maybe they're wearing 2.5 rows, maybe they're wearing 2 rows, and you just want to swap out one row at a time. So they're not investing in a full new set of extensions right off the bat. That's a great way just to transition them into it. Or maybe you just swap out one layer. Okay, maybe you take out one of their hand tied weft layers or 2 of their layers in that row and you deconstruct a machine weft, okay? Swap out that one layer, layer for layer, and now they're testing out machine weft, okay? Just to see if they like the feeling of the machine weft, they like the density of the machine weft, they like the actual weft itself laying on their scalp. That might be a great option just to transition them over, okay? But overall, transitioning, let's say they are ready for new hair, you've talked to them about machine weft, how it would benefit them, you can easily transition them over. Just remember, when you're ordering machine weft, this 1 pack of hair is typically plenty for the guest, unless you need a half of a pack of one color and then a half pack of another color, just to customize that color overall, okay? So the fun part, let's get down to measuring and deconstructing the machine weft. So I have my girl here. I'm gonna pull her out and kind of readjust just so everyone can see what I'm doing. Let me pump her up. Okay. So when it comes to applying the machine weft, okay? The actual application, the physical sewing, beading, right? That doesn't change. So you bead the exact same way using machine weft as you would have with hand tied weft. So you know we are taking our 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch scoop sections, applying our beads very flat and natural to the scalp. We're going in a horizontal shape section. That is the same, okay? When I am sewing my machine weft, I do the exact same pattern of sewing, okay? And like I said, I'm gonna do a little front part for you to tack the front down. However, all of your stitches look exactly the same, your anchoring looks the same, so nothing changes with the application. The only thing that changes is the hair, and with machine weft, we're gonna measure and cut the hair. We're not going to fold back and forth in place like we would the hand tied weft. So with that being said, I take my full machine weft, okay? And I already have my girl Colette, her name's Colette, beaded. Okay, I have her beaded the whole way around. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna keep her facing you so you can see. I'm gonna take the end of my machine weft, line it up with my front bead on the right. Okay, line it up with my front bead. Lay it the whole way around my row. And once I get to my front bead on the left side, I always give myself about 1 inch of wiggle room, just in case. Make sure I give myself 1 inch of wiggle room, okay? So this is the width, finger to fingertip, of this row. I'm going to grab my aqua scissors, or gold scissors here, and I'm just going to cut there. So I cut the weft, okay? Now, when you cut the weft, you are going to lose just a few hairs, right at the cut line. So I always pull out those few hairs, but you can see I just cut that weft. It's very strong, right? It's not falling apart like the hand tied weft would, right? At this point, if you just cut that hand tied weft, the entire weft unravels. All the hair sheds off. Unfortunately, that weft is now ruined. So with the machine weft, you're good to go. So I'm gonna set this half of the weft aside, I don't need it. And I'm just gonna focus on the side of the machine weft or the half of the machine weft that I just cut to match the width of the row that I'm applying it. Okay, so I'm gonna slide her off to the side for a second, and I'm gonna show you how to deconstruct the weft, okay? So I take my same scissors, and now, like I mentioned, you do not have to deconstruct. Okay, you do not have to deconstruct the weft. I can absolutely take this weft, okay, and what I would do is make sure that you can see the multiple layers on the one side. If I flip it over, it's nice and seamless. Okay, I want my seamless side on the top and the layered side underneath. So I would just lay it right across, clip her into place, sew it in, okay? However, if I truly need, this is too much density on my guest hair, okay? If I need less density, I can deconstruct, okay? If I want to mix and match some color options, I can deconstruct, okay? And a huge one for me that I absolutely love to do on most of my guests that wear machine weft is just deconstruct the front right and the front left off. Okay, does anybody know why I would do that? Let's say I deconstruct the first 2 inches on the right side. I take the top layer off of there and the top layer off of the right side and leave the back as 3 layers. Anybody know why I would do that? I see the answers and the correct answer in the chat box. Because it's finer, the edges lay flat, density, yes. So think 99% of our guests have much less density in their temple area or on the sides than they do in the back, okay? It can be too dense on the sides, but still be the correct density in the back. So let's say you do truly want all 3 layers in the back, but you only need 2 layers of density on the side, okay? I can go ahead and I'm gonna do that in a moment for you. Deconstruct just the top layer off of the front right. And I typically do that the first 3 beads. So I would measure 3 beads back and deconstruct that top layer and cut it off, okay? And I would do that on both sides. I can also do that down to 1 layer on the sides and 3 in the back, or 1 layer on the sides and 2 in the back. So it's truly up to you how many layers you want to remove and whether you're removing them to swap with another color or you're just truly removing them for density. So how I would deconstruct, and I'm going to get nice and close so you guys can see. So you can see this is the side, this is where I just had my cut, right? I just cut the other half of the weft off from here. And what I'm going to do is find where those 2 wefts meet. And I'm just going to start snipping out the thread that's connecting them. So I'll take my scissors, I'm just going to find, like I mentioned, where they're connected and deconstruct. So I'm just snipping, you can see I'm gonna get really close. I'm just snipping the thread that's sewing the layers together. And you can see as I do that, I'm starting to remove this top layer. Just want to get it started so you guys can see. And if you have an assistant or someone to help you in the salon, I absolutely will say it's much easier. It's not necessary, right? You can see me deconstructing it now, but it is easier if someone helps you hold the weft while you deconstruct. So they hold the one side, you hold the other side, there we go. And you are able to snip. So getting it started is the hardest part. You can see now I'm starting to deconstruct this into 2 layers. And all that I did was snip out the threads that are holding it together. So I just run my scissors right along those threads and I just deconstruct, okay? And I could do that the entire way across, right? I can just deconstruct that whole entire top layer off, or I can just deconstruct back to my 3rd bead, right? I can just deconstruct these first 3 beads, that width off of my machine weft, so I'm finer on the sides and more dense in the back. So that's what I'm going to do just today. So you can see, I'm gonna do that just on the one side. So you can see I'm just snipping. And you just have to be really careful that you do not cut the hair, you don't cut the weft itself, you're just snipping out the thread. And that's all that I'm doing is snipping out the threads. Okay, so I now have it deconstructed into 2 layers, okay? 1 layer on the top, the bottom layer is still made up of 2 other layers though. So I have 1 layer here, 2 layers here that are still connected. That bottom half has not been deconstructed yet, okay? So I can leave it full, I can leave it, or I can continue to deconstruct it, okay? So I'm just gonna show you what it looks like if I deconstruct the bottom half. I see a question here, can I reuse the layers I've cut off? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can. Depending on, you know, the width, right? If I deconstruct like a little inch piece off, I'm not sure how I would use that again. I could sew it into, I could always restack it in the front if I'm wanting to create a money piece. Okay, so let's say I deconstruct just this few inches off. I can stack that on a machine weft. You have to make sure that you sew it in very well. Okay, you have to make sure all the ends get tacked in. However, I could just layer a 2-inch, 1-inch wide piece, either way, of blonde, let's say, right in the very front to give more of that like color and money piece. So totally possible. You absolutely can reuse all of the hair that you deconstruct. So there's the top one, and now I'm just going to deconstruct my bottom. So the same thing, getting it started is always the hardest. Once you get it started, sorry, the lighting, I'm actually standing right in front of we have a garage door here at the salon. It's like 15 foot wide. It's so much beautiful natural light. But if I turn it the wrong way, we know how with brunettes, if you turn them the wrong way against the light, you can't see. Okay, there we go, we're started. So once I start to deconstruct, you can see I'm getting this separated, the bottom part of the bottom 2 layers. I'm now deconstructing them. Thought I had it started, but oh, there we go. Now I've got it. I'm starting to deconstruct the bottom into 2 separate layers. Kind of see there. So I do the same exact thing, snip along the bottom. I just snip out my threads until my bottom deconstructs now into 2 layers. So you can see, this was my top layer. I'm gonna put my scissors down. This was my top layer, okay? The bottom layer still was connected into 2. And if I choose to or need to, I would deconstruct the bottom layer into 2 more layers, leaving you 3 individual machine weft layers, okay? Now, what I'm going to do then is just snip off the top layer. Just first 3 beads back. There we go. And I would just cut the top layer off. Okay. Just cut the top layer off. And if I was doing that and leaving the bottom layer as 2, I wouldn't obviously deconstruct that, right? I would leave that whole. Now I have 2 layers on the side. You can see. You can kind of see where the density increases there. 3 layers across the back, and I would do the same thing on the other side. Okay? Again, I would do that just for density purposes, right? If your guest is much more fine on the sides, absolutely deconstruct back and give them a little bit less density. Okay, so as I'm doing that, I'm getting a question, does it compromise the integrity of the weft by deconstructing it? Absolutely not, right? So AQUA, we put a lot of testing and knowledge and so much technology into building our wefts, and we made sure that they are fully deconstructible. So it does not lessen the integrity of the hair. It does not compromise the durability whatsoever. It's still just as durable when you deconstruct the layers off. That's a great question. So when I am deconstructing, right, I would just deconstruct what I need to. And if I needed to, I could deconstruct a row or a layer off of my other weft and add and custom blend the colors in. That's definitely an option as well. All right, so I'm going to restack my weft back in place, and I'm just going to clip her in place. So let me bring Colette back over to me. Okay, so I'm just going to now clip back in place. I'll start on the right side since that's the side I deconstructed. I may need to, again, I left myself that inch wiggle room, so I may need to snip a little extra off. But you can see I clipped right over top of my beads just like I typically would. and just clip this weft into place. Now, the machine weft is definitely much thicker and dense, like I mentioned. So I like to clip it the whole way around in place, and then just take an extra duckbill, okay, silver duckbill, and clip it at the bottom just for sturdiness, right? I wanna make sure that it's fully clipped into place and doesn't slide, again, because typically, right, we're clipping using our single prong metal clips, clipping to the bead every 3 or 4 beads. And I just like to add a little extra support with my duckbills. Okay, so like I said, I gave myself that little extra inch just to make sure I had plenty of room. So I'm just going to now cut that off. Now that's preference. Again, I like to shy on, I don't, you know, in case I have an error, I like to make sure that I give myself a little extra. So with that being said, I have this small piece I just cut off just to make sure it fits. I don't want to actually get it clipped into place and realize that I'm too short. All right. So you can see here, this side, I did not deconstruct any layers off, but you can see on the other side I did. All right. Let me grab my needle and thread, and I'm going to show you how to properly tack the corners down of your wefts. So while we're doing that, I'm going to kind of get my needle and thread started. Please keep coming with the questions. So while I'm doing this, I would love to continuously answer your questions. I see lots of questions in here. I'm going to filter through them. We have our beautiful Sharonda on the back end sending me questions in. So I would definitely want to make sure that I get all your questions answered. So keep them coming in, and I'm going to kind of walk you through what I'm doing. Please, as I'm doing this, if for some reason you can't see what I'm doing, if you can't hear me, let me know. I'm going to bring her nice and close so we can make sure that you can truly see. And again, I'm using blonde thread, okay, only because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. If this was my guest, I would absolutely be using like a light brown thread to match her hair. All right. So I'm going to peek behind, make sure I can see, start on my 3rd bead, just like I always would. And I start on that 3rd bead with my box knot. Right, what questions do we have? Let's see. Can we use the layers? Yes. If I deconstruct the weft, does it compromise? We already answered that one. What's a good way to judge how much density or weight the client's natural hair can handle? That is a great question. So what is a great way to judge how much weight their hair can handle? So I like to look at how much density your guest has naturally. Okay, so essentially take her hair in a ponytail, feel how much density she has, and you want to almost mimic that density, right? No matter what, when you're adding extensions in, you're going to give her more density overall. It's inevitable, right? If you're adding extensions in, it's going to increase her density of hair. However, I would not want to overwhelm the hair that's there. So I like to feel it in a ponytail, match that density with extensions, and add a little bit extra. So if the guest their ponytail is about this much, right? It's very small. Their entire ponytail is very, very tiny. I would not take a full 160 grams of hair and add it into their head. So you just want to look at how many strands of hair do they have? Are they very dense strands? Are they very skinny, fine strands? And are they currently experiencing any hair loss? You want to take that into account. So truly just like match density for density. All right, so I just did my box knot, and I'm going to do my lock knot. And again, like, you know, this is a recap. I'm not sewing any differently. You can see here, just want to get these first few completed so I can show you how to tack the front down. So nothing has changed. Still doing now my lock knot on bead number 3. Right. Let me kind of scroll up here before I keep sewing so I can get to more questions. Copy of this class. Yes, just as a recap, you absolutely are going to get a copy of this class sent to you to ensure that you can rewatch. Let's see. Do we need to glue the ends of the machine wefts? That is a great question. And the answer is absolutely you do not. And we don't ever recommend to. So you saw I, cut the machine weft. I tugged on it really, really hard, and there was no hairs that had fallen out. So once you do cut that, it's still very durable. You will not shed, you will not fall apart or lose any hair. So there's no gluing necessary on any of our wefts. Hand tied weft, we never want to cut it ever to have to glue. And the machine weft, you definitely do not have to glue. Machine weft is recommended for fine or little hair. Do you recommend the hand tied? Yes, so the question is, the machine weft is not recommended for very fine or fragile hair. In that instance, yes, I would absolutely recommend the hand tied weft for very fine or fragile hair. Would a machine weft be a better option? Oh, we already answered that one. Okay, so I'm just finishing up my lock knot on bead number 1, okay? So you can see here, I'm now at lock on 3, 2, 1. And traditionally, I would then just do another lock knot on bead 1, okay? However, we always are kind of forgetting about our little front corners, right? It's lined up, I'm lined up with the bead. I don't have a flap or an overhang, right? I'm lined up. However, no matter what, I always have this little pesky corner that likes to stick out. So we wanna make sure that we secure those for our guest. That will make or break the entire application. Your guest could absolutely love wearing weft, but hate the front corners are poking out. So this is going to solve that problem. So what I'll do is, like I mentioned, I'm gonna do my box knot on 3, lock on 3, lock on 2, lock on 1. Before I do my second lock knot on bead number 1, I'm actually going to incorporate a loop knot at a diagonal just on this front corner of the weft to tack it down. Now, some of you might know loop knots as a blanket stitch, okay? That's exactly what I'm gonna do, but at AQUA, we call it a loop knot. So I'm going to take my needle, insert my needle still into the hair above the bead, okay? I'm sliding down the hair that's living above my bead, but instead of coming directly out underneath of the bead like we typically would, I'm going to kick it at a 45-degree angle forward, right? Always forward facing her face. Kick it at a 45-degree angle forward, okay? And exit on the very edge of my weft. So you see I'm at a diagonal forward, okay? Instead of going completely vertical like we always do and exit underneath of my bead, I'm actually going to just go to the center of the hair above the bead, kick it at a diagonal forward, and exit just on the very front corner of my weft. And when I exit, I need to exit up through the center of my loop. So do you see I have my loop here? I actually exit right through the center of my loop. I pull it straight up through the center. I elevate my loop just to keep it clean and up and off of the hair, and I pull. So I pull, pull, and you see my loop getting smaller and smaller. I let go when my loop is very small. I can't fit my finger in there, and I lock it up, okay? You can see how that loop knot now is, let me lift her off of here so you can see, maybe. Okay, so my loop knot is at a diagonal on the corner of the weft. It's not on the top of the weft to the very side of the weft. There's still hair of the weft in front of the knot. And all that that's doing, you can see now just how seamless and flat that's laying. So I actually would do 2 to 3 of them, okay? Starting closest to your lock knot, going all the way to the very corner. So I'm gonna do one more loop knot right in front of my first one, just to tack that very, very corner down. So I'm gonna go through the center above the bead, kick it at a diagonal forward, 45 degrees roughly, and exit on the very edge of my weft. So I'm just exiting on the very edge of the weft, coming up through the center of my loop. Here's my loop, coming right up through the center of it and pulling. So when I pull, and I lock that loop all the way at the top. So I have 2 loops sitting directly next to each other. Now, if for some reason that second loop did not quite make it to the very, very corner of your weft, I could do a 3rd loop, okay? I could absolutely do a 3rd loop if necessary. So my second loop got to the very corner of my weft and it laid it very flat, Okay, you can see it's very, very flat. It's not poking out whatsoever. So I don't need to do a third one, but if I did need to, I absolutely could do one more. So after I complete my front 2 loop knots, then I go back to bead number 1 and do my traditional lock knot on the bead. Okay, my traditional lock on the bead. And finish that off. Now, you know, when I do those loop knots, I didn't lock it, okay? There's no spin, there's no twist to create the lock. So they're not going to stay tight unless you keep your tension tight. So you have to keep your tension nice and taut and ensure that you don't fully let go until your last lock knot and bead number 1 is complete. And then I would just continue around the head as usual. So you can see here that I did lock on 1, 2 to 3 loops at a diagonal just to tack the front down, and I finished it with a lock on 1. Okay, so what this does is allow for this very front corner to lay nice and flat. Okay, those front loop knots are not holding any weight. The lock knots on the bead are holding the weight. So the loop knots are just laying that front corner of the weft down nice and flat. Now, this is not an option. This is not a fix. If you had a huge overhang, if you do not line up your wefts well and they do not meet at bead number 1, this is not the solution for you having an inch overhang. Absolutely not. You're going to cause tension on your guest's scalp if you're over directing and pulling that weft back. This is the solution for your weft lining perfectly up with bead number 1, okay? And you're just needing to lay it down flat. So I hope this helps. I would absolutely do this on both sides. So I would continue to lock the entire way around the head. Once I get to bead 1 on the opposite side, I would do my first lock knot on it, 2 to 3 loops at a diagonal forward all the way to the edge of the weft, lock back on number 1, lock on 2, lock on 3, and finish it off with your box knot. Okay, so I really hope that that helps you. Please, when you first try it out on your guest, I would love to hear how it goes. Send me a message if you have any questions, tag me on Instagram. Once you're practicing, I love to see all of your work and let me know how that works for you. So we have about under 10 minutes and I want to get to all of the questions that I'm seeing come in. So let me kind of scroll through here and get some of your questions answered. Let's see. I've only had tape-ins in my own hair and I'm wondering if wefts would work on my hair. Mine is fine. Stacy, great question. So it's hard to tell without seeing your hair. However, 100% I can tell you if your hair, if you have like medium length hair, right? And you're wearing tape-ins. And now when you say tape-ins, it really depends on how many you're wearing. Are you wearing a full head of tape-ins? Are you wearing just tape-ins on the side for fill-ins? However, if you are wearing tape-ins and your hair can sustain the weight of tape-in extensions, you absolutely could wear weft. Now, the question would be hand tied weft or machine weft. So if your hair is finer, like you mentioned, I would definitely start with hand tied weft. I think hand tied weft is absolutely the most natural and flat laying. And the majority of guests can wear hand tied weft because it's very fine. So I have no doubt you can absolutely wear hand tied weft. If your hair is fine, I would not go to machine weft. I would start with hand tied weft and then go from there. So how do you go about price point? If you need to order 2 colors of machine weft, it would be a lot of hair with 2 packs of machine weft and you wouldn't want to use all the hair. Do you have hair on hand at the salon and customize the price point and color that way? Or do you order per client? Cindy, that's a great question. So personally me, and if any of you are looking to really take your extension business to the next level, absolutely keep extensions on hand. Absolutely. So I personally keep machine weft and hand tied weft on hand at my salon. Besides myself, I have 4 other stylists that do offer extensions. So it absolutely is a great investment for our salon because there's no waiting, right? The guest does not have to go home and ask their husband, can they get extensions? How many of you are with me? They're like, okay, I'm gonna go home and ask my husband. While I appreciate that you are, making sure your finances are in order. If you have extensions right here, right now, they can have extensions today, right? There's no waiting to get the extensions to come in, put the deposit down, the whole works, you have them here. So I absolutely do. And I would recommend for you to start investing in just a few packs extra on hand. You don't have to go in, $5,000, $10,000 investment on extensions, but every time you order, if you order one extra pack to start to build your back bar inventory, it's amazing. It also is a great way to introduce your guests to extensions. Right? If you have an extra 30 minutes in your day, your guest is thinking about extensions, you can say, hey, let me just pop this one weft in. I want you to feel it, see how it feels in your hair, wear it. And then that may be their gateway to extensions. So that's a great way to just introduce them. And if you have that little bit of a backstock, that's great for your end of the deal. So the question is, what do I do if I need to order 2 packs just for color purposes? So how I price my extensions, I price them by the look. Okay, the guest pays for the look that they are trying to achieve. So if I do need to order 2 packs to give them that look, that is not their fault that I had to do that, right? I had to order that to give them the look, right? I always like to think you needed to go and order a tub of lightener for your guest, right? Your guest needs highlights today. You went and bought a whole tub of lightener. Is she paying the cost of the whole tub of lightener? No, right? She's paying for a highlight service that includes 1 or 2 scoops, whatever it might be. They're not paying for the whole entire tub. So the same thing with extensions. If you need to order 2 packs, right, you would use half of the pack of one, half of the pack of the other. The other leftover are yours to use on someone else to have in your back stock of inventory. And they essentially would pay for that look. And the look you would need 1 of each half pack. So definitely a great question. When do you typically deconstruct if you're leaving 1 inch of wiggle room? Do you deconstruct if you're leaving 1 inch of room? So like I did here, I measure, right? I measure around the beads. I cut to the width that I need, leaving myself an extra inch, and then I would deconstruct back 3 beads. And in that instance, you probably will want to deconstruct. Before you deconstruct, okay, let me backtrack. So I would cut to the width, okay? Before I deconstruct, I honestly would clip her into place, cut off any extra that I didn't need, and then take it off and deconstruct. That way, for sure you're only deconstructing back those first 3 beads, 2 beads, 4 beads, however many beads you feel that she has lesser density on the side. That's a great question. Cindy asks, what's the difference between the 2 types of thread that occur? Oh my goodness, I'm so tongue-tied at this point. So what is the difference between the 2 types of thread that AQUA offers? So the thread that I was using today is our traditional cotton thread. Okay, it is a double cotton thread. It has a lot of grip to it. Okay, the other thread option that we have is nylon thread. So nylon thread is actually absolutely amazing to use, especially with machine weft, because it's very, very thin. So the nylon thread is almost invisible on the hair because of how thin it is. Let me see, I might have I don't have one on me at the moment, but the nylon thread is very, very thin. The only challenge with the nylon thread, I will say, is if you were not a comfortable sewer yet. Okay, so if you were new to doing weft, if you're still working on your tension, you're still working on your knots, the nylon thread is very slippery. So every time you do a lock knot, you absolutely have to keep your tension tight or the lock knot will loosen. So with nylon thread, you have to keep your tension very, very tight the entire time. Unlike the cotton thread, you can do a lock knot, lock it up, and you're good to go. So if you are more advanced, you're very comfortable sewing with cotton, I absolutely recommend trying nylon. They're both just as durable, okay? They both are just as durable on the guest. They both come in the same 4 color options. However, the nylon can be very, very beautiful with a thicker machine weft because of how thin the thread is, and it is very seamless in the hair. All right, how many machine wefts can you stack on each other? Great question. So you would never want to apply more than 1 full machine weft in the hair. Okay, there are already those 3 layers. The weft itself is very thick and dense, which adds extra weight onto the hair. So I would never stack more than 1 complete machine weft in the hair when you're doing our traditional application. Now, if we're talking camo, right, and some of you have taken camo classes with us, you know in the camo class, we've discussed how we would then layer machine weft on the top and underneath, right? But if you're doing a traditional application, no more than one machine weft in the hair. Do you price per row or do you price for the application? Now, again, that's preference. I think I mentioned that earlier. This is for Margaretta, maybe. So I price by the look, right? And that's what we recommend at AQUA, by pricing by the look, which may be for the row. Absolutely, you can price per row or per look. So I would definitely price differently depending on machine weft and hand tied weft, because machine weft, the cost of the hair is less. So my machine weft price per look is less, a lesser cost than my hand tied weft per look. Questions are, will there ever be an option to purchase machine weft in less density to make it more cost effective? So I'm guessing you're asking like half packs, things like that. At the moment, we just have that one full pack, 30-inch wide piece. I think Veronica had asked the question. So at the moment, we do just have that one full pack. Now, maybe in the future, never say never. If that's something that a lot of stylists are requesting, you know us at AQUA, we absolutely are committed to you as a beauty professional, and we're always looking to elevate and advance. So if that's something that you are looking for, please let us know. We're always looking to see what stylists want, hence why we're always launching new colors, new extension systems, threads, things like that. So if you are looking for half packs, please let us know. And if enough stylists want it, maybe that's something we can look for the future. Roger asks, do you have an invisible technique? We do. It's called our camo method. Our camo method is absolutely incredible. It is more of that, like you said, invisible. We call it camouflage technique with hair underneath and on top of the beads. So we are offering camo classes all over the country. Visit our website. You can see our upcoming camo classes, the dates, and where they're located. And you also can fill out a form if you're looking for a camo class near you or willing to host an in-salon class. So we do offer those advanced camo classes. I have the most trouble keeping tension towards the middle of my row. The weft starts to drop. Any ideas on what I'm doing wrong or what I can do different? Ashley, great question. So if you're having issues in the middle back section of the row where the tension is struggling, I would just make sure that first your beads the entire way around are equal distance apart, right? Remember that, let me grab my deluxe pliers. Your beads should only be the width of your deluxe plier and the depth of your deluxe plier, right? Which also means you can fit your deluxe plier in the center between each individual bead. You should be able to fit your plier perfectly in between the beads. So if first you check your beads are all perfectly in line, or there's no challenges in the back, that's where I see most stylists struggle, is once they get around to the back, their beads are either sagging or they're not equal distance apart. Check that first. And if they are all in line, I would just make sure that every time you do a full lock knot, you're pulling straight down, getting the tension out, right? Completely down and locking it up, like into the scalp. So I see a lot of stylists, they struggle because their lock knots aren't actually getting locked up, they're getting locked out. So as stylists, we lock out instead of up. We need to make sure that we lock up and the tension is nice and tight in between our beads, every single bead. So I would try that, make sure that your tension's staying nice and tight and you are locking every lock knot up the whole way around the back, and that should fix that tension issue. When you're transitioning tape-in clients to sew-in wefts, how do you determine how much hair the guest needs? Do you go by equal weight? Great question, Annie, and I absolutely do. So if your guest is wearing, let's say, 4 packs of tape-in extensions, okay, we know at AQUA, our tape-in extensions are roughly 25 grams per pack. So if they're wearing 4 packs, that's roughly 100 grams of hair. So I would make sure I order the amount of wefts that I need to be roughly the same weight. So roughly, again, that 100 grams of hair. So hand-tied weft, that would be roughly 2 packs of hair. And we know machine weft, that would be that 1 pack of hair. So you would equal the weight in tape-in extensions as you would with the weft extensions. Great question. How many rows of machine weft nape to crown? Heather's asking. So just like hand-tied weft, you could apply up to, and I say up to, absolutely max 4 rows of weft, right? And that is someone who has very, very thick, dense hair and may need those 4 rows. On average, with your full head of extensions, your guests will wear 2 to 2.5 rows of weft, whether it's machine or hand tied weft. So that is a full head of extensions, right? We know that we can just do one row for density, for color purposes, everything like that. But machine weft would be just the same as hand tied weft, and it would be on average those 2 to 2.5. When I say 2.5, we mean our 2 full rows and that half bottom nape row that would sit directly below the occipital, right at the base of it, where your scalp stops stretching. So 2 to 2.5 rows, but if necessary, they could have that top 4th row, which we call it like another half row. That half row could go in the back crown if they have a very dense, heavy crown area, or it could go on the sides. You can do a half row on the right or left side if your guest wears a heavy side part and has a very thick, dense layer there. You absolutely could do that as well. Okay. The question is, I just did my first machine weft application. I did 3 rows of 0 deconstruction. By the end, I still had a full 5 to 6 inch piece. Can I deconstruct the last bit into 3 new wefts and add 1 more layer to each row? Great question. So the question is, she did 3 full rows, right, with 1 pack of hair. She still has a 5 to 6 inch piece left over. She's asking, can she deconstruct that into 3 layers and add 1 more layer into each row? Now, Danae, the short answer is no. Right? We only want to apply 1 full machine weft with the 3 layers undeconstructed in each row in our traditional application. Okay, so that extra layer, I think, would just be too much density on each row and too much weight, which could compromise the guest's hair. Now, if you're using our camo method, totally different, right? We know that we absolutely can have weft layers underneath and on top. So that is a possibility to then add that extra layer. So what I would recommend for you is to come to one of our camo classes and learn our camo technique. And you definitely can do that, deconstruct and add weft under and on top, which would give you more than those 3 layers. I'm getting a lot of pricing questions. So I just wanna kind of say that, in all of our extension classes, we discuss pricing, and everyone prices totally different, right? I'm not here to tell you exactly how to price. Like I mentioned, I would highly recommend a price per look. Okay, when I say I price by the look, I include the cost of the hair. I include the application. I include, their shampoo, cut, and style. And most importantly, I always include our take-home essentials kit to every single guest. So our essentials kit comes in our beautiful black leather bag, and you get all of their take-home products they need to maintain their hair at home. So their AQUA shampoo, AQUA conditioner, an AQUA multi-benefits leave-in conditioning spray, and their boar whistle brush. So I include that in every extension application with me. It's non-negotiable. It comes included. They don't have the option to say that they don't want it. And I price all of that as one total price. I don't give them the breakdown. They don't know how much the hair cost, right? As a professional, only you know how much that hair cost. At AQUA, we never give that information out. We only sell to licensed hairstylists. So I actually do recommend to charge by the look. And when I say by look, that can mean a partial, a full, or a mega look, right? But that also can mean 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, okay? And that full pricing would be hair, application, a shampoo, cut, style, and their take-home essentials kit. Okay, so that's absolutely how I would recommend. That's the only way that I recommend to stylists. I don't recommend to sell hair and then charge for the application. There's nothing wrong with it. I just see stylists really getting in a bind in so many ways. And I actually do want to do an additional Instagram live or webinar about it, because I do see so many stylists really struggling with selling hair and then having the guest pay an application fee. Whereas if you just price it as one total look, the guest only knows that end price. They can't negotiate how much hair they want, how much they want to pay for it. Why can't I go buy my hair elsewhere if I'm just buying hair from you, right? Think of it as a service, right? You as a stylist are providing a service that you need extensions to provide that service. Okay. And like I mentioned, I always give them their take-home products because I don't want any challenges of them saying I don't want to buy them. They're included. To me, I tell them they're complimentary, right? And they get to take them home with them. So I'm seeing a lot of pricing questions. I want to make sure I covered that. Do you feel the extensions are gentle enough for someone who has a lot of hair loss from COVID? Great question, Cheryl. I would always have them consult their doctor with that, honestly. Everyone's hair loss has been completely different. I actually have experienced a lot of COVID hair loss in the last few months. I still can wear, personally, hand-tied weft. For me, I would not wear machine weft. It's very heavy on my hair that I have left over, but always consult their doctor in that case. And it is a case-by-case situation. Okay. I see some of the questions are already being answered. Someone, another question, how do you price a move up? Again, Lindsay, that is absolutely case by case. It really just depends. And I mean, I guess stylist by stylist. I would recommend to determine how long it's going to take you for a move up. Okay, 1 rose, 2 rows, 3 rows, whatever it is. Partial look, full look, mega look. How long is it going to take you? How much money do you need to make in that time? Right? It really depends on your experience. It depends on your education. It depends on your demographic overall. I live in Ohio, live in a very small town in Ohio, right outside of Akron, a little south of Cleveland. So my prices are totally going to be different than someone who lives in LA, right? 2 totally different pricing. So really determine for you, again, it's a luxury service. How much do you need to make in that time? So if it's taking you 1 hour, how much do you need to make in that 1 hour? And I do recommend it's much higher than your 1 hour haircut price, okay? I do see stylists having a lot of success with maybe taking your first initial install price, cutting that in half, and that is your move up price, right? Or maybe cutting it in the thirds or something like that, determining, okay, based upon your first install, this is your move up price. So that's something that I'd recommend for you to do your research, determine what stylists are charging in your market. I wouldn't base your pricing on their pricing, right? Because their pricing might be wrong, but determine what your demographic is. And really at the end of the day, what are your numbers? How much money do you need to make per hour for that to make sense? Sheila says, what's your Instagram handle? Oh, I love that. Okay, I'm actually gonna put my Instagram handle in the chat box so you guys have it. It's at Sharpie_J. Okay, so I just put it in the chat box. It's at Sharpie, SHARPI_J. There's no E, SHARPI_J. My name is Samantha Sharpless. So follow me on Instagram, I'll follow you back. And like I mentioned earlier, I love to be tagged in all of your work. I would love to see how some of you guys are doing with this tacking. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me, message me on Instagram, message AQUA on Instagram. We're great at just getting back with you if you have any challenges or any questions. Or what else are you looking for? We love to do these webinars. We actually have another amazing webinar coming up on June 20th with another national educator, Christina. She is doing a bougie bridal webinar. So I would highly recommend for you to go to AQUA's website, sign up for her webinar. She's teaching you all the tips and tricks on how to use clip-in extensions to complete a bridal look or a formal style. So that one I'm so excited for. It's a very low investment. You actually get a credit back in product just for purchasing the class. So it's essentially free for the class. But what else do you guys want to know? So we'd love to hear from you. If there's another webinar that you really are interested in and you would love to have some information on, let us know. And like I said, I think I got to all of the questions, most of the questions, but if I did not answer your question, reach out to me, okay? I actually currently on my Instagram story at the moment, I have a questions box and we actually have one at AQUA as well. So if you're watching the replay of this, it might already be gone. But if you have a question, ask them in the questions box. And any questions that I didn't answer here, I will answer on Instagram. So if there is a pressing question that you have, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Okay, awesome. So I know we went a little over time. It's okay. All the knowledge happening here, all the great questions. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for spending your afternoon or your morning with me. And if you're watching the replay, thanks for spending your maybe evening with me on the replay. As always, I love educating. I love getting to know all of you. I love interacting with all of you. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you guys have any questions. And I can't wait to see all of your machine weft work. Awesome. Have a great day, guys. Bye.